This is using Pro Tools Part 2, and we're going to learn more about the useful options and tools inside Pro Tools. Um, First thing we're going to talk about is just nudging. I'm going to hit the plus and the minus on the keyboard, and you'll see how we scroll down, but it's more than one frame, which is annoying to me. And so I'm going to twirl down here, and I'm going to set my nudge from 1 second to 1 frame. And now we're scrolling frame by frame. Um, now let me close this transport first. So basically, you guys know how to turn on this transport, the main transport, but I don't. It's one extra thing that I don't like to use, and so I'm going to right click in here, and I'm going to click transport to have one that's embedded up here, and it's a little easier for me to reach. And then the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to options, and we're going to go to loop playback, which will turn our playhead into a playback. So that I'm going to click and drag on this little bit of dialogue, and then I'll just hit either play or the space bar.
Who's the tool and they're boning my mom? Who's the tool and they're boning my mom?
And so now we've got a useful area for when we start adding effects, which is what we're going to do now. So we've got our tracks are all built and mixed the way we like them so far. But this voiceover was all, we did ADR on all of this voice, and it's a little too flat, it's a little too clean. And so we're going to need to add a little reverb to it to make it come more alive. But before we do that, we need to add a new master track. And we'll make it stereo. And when we control, and so basically this will allow us to control the overall output of all the tracks involved here. Okay? But we're going to leave that set for 0 right now. Here in the mix bar, we've got Stuart's voice, and we are going to insert reverb, air reverb mono. And now we'll hit play. All right, so we know the reverb is working. And so first we'll change the room size. Okay, so that sounds pretty good to me. Now, by clicking bypass, it'll turn off the effect.
Who's the tool and they're boning my mom? Who's the tool and they're boning my mom?
So I like that amount of room on this because it makes makes them feel like we're feeling some sound reflections in this hard space here. And we can also we can get less decay by changing the reverb time, and you can also do less by adding the mix. Now, a problem with doing it this way, though, is that if we start adding a bunch of effects to each of these tracks, we're really going to slow down the render engine and the performance of Pro Tools. So let's try to work a little smarter, and we'll take it out of there. First thing that we're going to do is we're going to go to the playback engine, and basically when you're recording, you want it to be a smaller sample size, like 128, 256, 512. But when we are mixing, we want to crank it up to full sample size, so that will help us with our mixing. And then the next thing that we'll do is we'll create an auxiliary track that will have that effect on it, and then we can send different tracks to it. And so instead, like, because we want reverb on both Palmer and Stewart, so if we put the reverb on it individual in each track, we're doubling the reverb. Where if we create an auxiliary track and send these tracks to it, we're only using one reverb for the playback engine. So first thing we'll do is we'll create a couple new tracks. Let's create a master fader. That'll be stereo. And what that'll do is that it is attached to all of these tracks. So that if you needed to like do a master fade out of all these tracks, you could just do that here. The next track we're going to build is an auxiliary track, auxiliary input track. and we will make that stereo. And I'm going to double click on that, and we're going to call it reverb so it's useful to us. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to send this to the first available bus, which happens to be bus 1 and 2. So we'll send that to there. And then we will take our Stewart track and we will also send it to bus 1 and 2. Okay, and that will open up this extra track that we need to set to 0 so that we can hear the effect. And now all we need to do is add our effect to this auxiliary track, and now when we play,
Who's the tool that they're boning my mom?
so now we're getting this out, and if we wanted less, we could always lower it.
Who's the tool that they're boning my mom?
So that's
Who's the tool that they're...
it's an extra mix control of how much the effect we want to mix in. But we'll just go ahead and dial this back to where we had it before. I believe it was 10%. Okay.
Who's the tool that they're boning my mom? Who's the tool that they're boning my mom? Who's the tool that they're boning my mom? Who's the tool that they're boning my mom?
Okay. And so then we like that, and then we want to match it to Palmer's. So we will also send bus 2 so that when we play both of their tracks.
Tool that they're boning my mom. Stop. Don't go in there.
And so now they both have the same amount of reverb.